Okay. Thanks everyone for joining us. I did put up an agenda, kind of a bit more of a fulsome agenda on the website if anyone's interested. This will be our first community update. We'll probably have another one in November as things get a little bit closer to competition season. So welcome, and I'm going to turn it over to Katja, and she will be talking about our plans for this coming weekend at Horseshoe.
Okay, hi everyone. So we'll have an in-person XCSO Apply Day / weekend at Horseshoe Resort. And we're starting on Friday night with a meet and greet at the Crazy Horse Tavern, which is part of the Horseshoe Resort. And then Saturday is more of an indoor session. Basically, we're covering 4 topics, and the agenda is also on our website. And I'm just going to pull that up for a second. So we're covering Paranordic, and we have a presentation by Bruce Deacon, and Bruce Deacon is the consultant that we hired to develop a sustainable Paranordic program. So we're looking at breaking down the barriers, and so he's done this review, and he's just going to present kind of his findings as of yet. So that will be part of it, and we'll include the community to kind of look at what our new Paranordic program could look like. So that's one of the topics. Then the other one, or the next one, is let me just see, and they may, I'm just looking at the agenda now, and they may switch a little bit because Bruce Deacon is from BC, so we might have to change. We have Paranordic at the beginning, but we might have to change that up so that he has a chance to get up in the morning. And another topic is gender equity versus gender equality. And just a sort of a short summary that we have been chosen as one of 18 organizations, and that sport organizations as well as municipalities. It's mainly sports, but there are recreational organizations. So it's a bit of a mix, and that's across the country. And we've been chosen to fulfill this it's a 12-step program. It's for 6 months. And we're just at the beginning of it to basically look at, incorporate our gender equity lens in our sport and look at how we can include or encourage more girls and women in our sport. And so we're just at the beginning of that, of those steps, and we're working on our vision. So we're going to have everyone included in sort of working together on what we like XCSO to look like with regards to including girls and women and make it more gender equal. So that's one of the topics. And then it's called Apply It Day. So we definitely want to make sure that there's a huge component to how we can apply this to not just our sport, but to the people that are present and their clubs. So we have people signed up as of yet that are coaches, officials, administrators. So we want to make sure that everyone has a chance to basically bring their scenarios forward to see how this can be applied. And that also basically goes for the next topic, which is safe sport. We've talked a lot about safe sport quite a bit, and we're now looking at different scenarios. We're going to bring forward a few scenarios that we have experienced in the last, I think it's been 5 years that we've been working on this. And so we want to bring a few examples forward, but we really want to hear from you, whoever's attending, what challenges or what successes that everyone's had in applying Rule of Two and our safety guidelines, basically. And then the last topic on a Saturday is an open mic, and we're putting forward a couple of questions to the community, and then we want to hear from you in terms of what's working, what's not working, and we're sort of guiding that conversation in that last piece. So that's the Saturday. And Sunday, we have a couple of different things going on. That's the more practical side of things. We have a training to train dryland workshop that's being completed. So those coaches have already started that workshop virtually, and they're just finishing it up. In person, we have some evaluations that are happening for Comp Dev and training to train coaches. And all those different parts have been set up already. And whoever is attending the weekend and does not have anything assigned in terms of coaching application will be encouraged to participate in an officials timing session. So we'll have probably 3 to 4 hours on Sunday morning. Angus Carr will be doing a race simulation, and we'll be talking about timing so that people have practical application to what that means. So we're encouraging everyone, not just officials, to participate, because it's a good time to see what our officials are doing so that we can host our races. So that's basically the kind of how this weekend will unfold. We have 23 registrations right now. So thank you for whoever signed up. And if you're still interested, we can still accept applications or registrations, just not for accommodation. That's already been set. It's too late for that now, but we can still include you in the food, and we'd love to have you attend. So the registration on Zone 4 is still open, and it's also on the website to find that link. So that's it for the weekend. Liz, you're on mute.
If I can just add, the registration closes tomorrow night at midnight. Oh. So.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Katja. So this year we did things a little differently with respect to staffing. We were fortunate to hire 4 district development coordinators. We just decided that that was a better way to offer programming in each of the districts, just with COVID and everything, that we were able to offer more programming without having one person going all across the province. So I'm just looking, we have 3 out of 4 of our district development coordinators on the line tonight. I'm going to start, the first one is Brian Dubo, and Brian is in SOD. And we also have Catherine Denis, who is in NCD. She also coaches with NACRTalk. And we have Peter Wiltman, who is helping us in NOD. He's a Parry Sound guy, so technically he's an SOD, but he's pretty close to NOD. Anybody who lives in Toronto thinks Parry Sound's in Northern Ontario anyway. So yeah, so let's start with Brian, and then he's just going to give you a quick update on what he's been doing and any future plans that are underway. And if anybody has any questions, if you can just save your questions for Brian to the end, and then we'll get Catherine and Peter in there. And just one thing, our missing district development coordinator is Catherine Hall, and she's located in Thunder Bay here in the Lake Superior Ski District. So take it away, Brian.
Great. Thank you, Liz. Good evening, everybody, and nice to see you all tonight here. Just, wow, where did that summer go? It was a blast. We've had 4 camps happening in SOD. 2 of them I was directly involved in. We've had a combined SOD NOD camp in Parry Sound, And I see Finn is on the call here. We just finished a very wet and rainy, cold day in Huntsville with the SOD team fall camp. So there's been lots of things happening. We are starting to think about club visits. I've made my way around to quite a few clubs already and looking at ways that XCSO can support you in moving ahead with your club programs. I was fortunate to attend a para camp in Sudbury this summer, which was my first exposure to para world, and I tell you that was a highlight of my summer without a doubt. Very, very powerful experience for me. And yeah, just been sort of helping people move along with their coaching courses, along with Katja there, trying to connect people with moving ahead with those. And I see lots of enthusiastic coaches in SOD, and that excites me. So what's to come? Well, we are busily trying to get our district race series underway. Lots more club visits. There are lots of you that I need to get around and see, so we'll be doing some of that, and possibly sneak in a winter super camp in there somewhere as well. So just a few things that we're looking ahead to. Thanks, Liz.
Thanks, Brian. Catherine, can you, there you are.
Hey everyone, putting my camera on now because my internet is so-so. So hopefully it hangs on for just this call here. Yeah, so I'm Catherine, I'm from the National Capital District. And I would say maybe things have been a bit slower than Brian. He's been up to a lot and hardworking. But for us in the NCD region, we've had 2 camps. So we had a U16 camp in July, as well as a U18 camp. They both included a Sunday adventure hike, which I think was a pretty big hit. And fortunately, we were able to have Nakartok, Chelsea, and Canada Nordic all combined together. So lots of athletes and yeah, a really good time. It was really fun, at least on my end of things. I think it was for the athletes too. Now what's to come? Actually, this weekend, unfortunately, I won't be able to make it to the Apply It Day because I am going to be helping out with a post-secondary camp here in the Ottawa region. Right now we have energy athletes from Nakartok, we have Carleton athletes and U-Ottawa athletes, and possibly a few more from the region or outside of the region might pop in to do some training as well. Looking forward in 3 weeks time, so our first weekend in November, we're going to be having a U14 camp, which I suspect will be pretty big because I think all 3 major club programs in the area have a lot of athletes there. And then we're looking at a on snow camp for the U16s and U18s in late November. Unfortunately, I have not been able to do as many club visits as I'd like to, but that is in the plans, especially once the snow flies. So I will be stepping out of this role, but the person that will be replacing me is going to be very enthusiastic about getting to know all the clubs in the NCD region and getting to know them well and supporting their activities. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Catherine. And Peter.
Peter might not be here yet because he's on the NOD call.
Oh, right. Okay.
Just signed in, but he's not really there yet.
Okay. All right. Well, we can come back to Peter next time, or once he's here. Vic, you're up. We can't hear you, Vic.
What about now?
We can now.
Great. Okay. So I've got a couple things to recap before looking ahead for the season, but we, on the high performance or the performance side of the program, we ran a camp this summer in Penticton. Brian was our lead coach there in conjunction with the training center, which turned out to be a great camp. The smoke that we had kind of worried about heading out there turned out to be not too bad. Just a bit of watching the weather and looking at the smoke forecast to avoid some of those things. Some good altitude training and some good volume put in by the athletes there too. Then we also ran another camp in Parry Sound. That's just less than a couple weeks ago. And again, in conjunction with the training center was really good. I think there's some really good training was done, and luckily the roads quiet down in Parry Sound after the Labor Day weekend. So the roller skiing was good, and everyone had some good training out there. We did try and run our performance camp in late summer. Unfortunately, we were just trying to figure out our COVID protocols, et cetera. And so the late notice may have, I think, restricted some of the attendance and interest we got from athletes. So we ended up having to cancel that camp, unfortunately. But looking ahead, we are planning a camp in Morin Heights, and I think we had almost 50 applications to that camp, and we're just going through the selection of athletes for that camp now, and hopefully we'll have that kind of clarified in the next couple of days and notify people as soon as possible. So looking forward there. And then we also have Brian again leading a camp at Frozen Thunder for our high performance group, and and actually Katja, Brian, and are heading to FISU Games, which is the World University Championships in early December, along with Jack Sassville as well, which should be really exciting. Hopefully we got some good results there the last time around, so hopefully we'll see some good performances from our Ontario athletes there too. So that's kind of the recap and programming side. I think some of the interesting stuff that I can share is probably the calendar. This is kind of pretty much finalized. So I'm going to actually do a screen share. I might have to be the host, Liz. I think maybe I can do this anyway, but I'll just try. Yeah. So you should be able to see a calendar on your screen. So we'll go from November through to through the end of the season. So you'll notice there's a couple things happening here, including this first weekend of racing, possibly on December 4th, 5th. That will be possibly a district race in NOD. I think probably there's some discussion about this tomorrow on another call. That's the weekend prior to the first kind of O Cup, which will also be an Eastern Cup race at Nakartok, also known as the Candy Cane. That will be O Cup, Eastern Cup. And the Eastern Cup is that series that Nordic Canada has put together in kind of lieu of the NORAM no longer existing. So instead of a national calendar the full year, now there is a split East-West calendar for parts of the year, and then a national calendar again for trials and nationals at the end of the year. So if you have any questions about the structure of the racing series this year, just shoot me an email. But there is information on Nordic Canada's website about how that looks as well. But this will be an O Cup and that kind of race combined, which mean there will be a FIS category, which will score FIS points, which is the U20 and open category. And then there'll be our O Cup categories, like our O Cup only categories, which would be U18 and younger. And that will mean that the WAX protocol, which I'll talk about shortly, will apply to the U18, U16 and younger categories. And then the FIS kind of rules will apply to the U20 and open categories, which for this coming year will be still HF allowable, or there will be no sanctions for HF. So as far as we're concerned, that means that probably it's everyone's fair game to apply HF WAC still. So there is another Eastern Cup in MSA. I'm assuming some Ontario athletes will also head there. That will also be part of a Super Tour selection. That criteria is available again on Nordic Canada's website. If you're interested possibly as a U18, but it is targeted at U20 athletes to attend the Super Tour series with Nordic Canada's team. For athletes who don't qualify for World Juniors, then you will want to go to both of these weekends. It's the best 3 or 4 races to qualify for that Super Tour series. Yeah, and then FISU Winter Games are, of course, in this December period. So heading into January, there's trials in Canmore. Then probably for most people on the call, the Walden O Cup. So this is going to be in Sudbury on the 15th, 16th, and Thunder Bay on that high school turnover week, the 28th through 30. So two races in Walden, 3 races in Thunder Bay. There is also, for anyone interested in Paranordic on this call, we are looking at putting together an official Paranordic Provincial Cup, or PN Cup, I guess we might call it. We will probably be looking at weekends that will have 1 to 2 races with a training camp component built into them as well. So it's a bit more than just a race or something like that. So we'll be looking at Walden, possibly splitting time between Walden and Kivy that weekend. And then also on this Thunder Bay weekend, there will be a camp at Kivy, or we're proposing at this point a camp at Kivy in Sudbury on that same weekend as the Thunder Bay O Cup. The Super Tour weekend. So if you do qualify for that U20 Super Tour with Nordic Canada, you would likely depart actually probably midweek here in the end of January. So around 26, 27, there's a race in Lake Placid. If I, again, open this here, you'll see the green here, Lake Placid, and Craftsbury the next weekend. So you'll go from one race to the other, and you'll spend the week likely training in the US in between. I don't have so many more details on the specifics of that trip, but I'm sure more info will come as Nordic Canada releases for that. So then we head into February. We have this Eastern Cup again at Nakartok, second time in the season. So it'll be a 3-race weekend, 2 individual races, and a relay as well. So I think right now we're looking at a club relay, 2 boys, 2 girls, 2 classic, 2 skate legs, on like a full-on distance relay. Quebec and Ontario are quite excited about this format. I'm going to sell a little bit. I know there's some probably going to be some feedback from various people, but this is a format that, it's an Olympic format that we in this country don't do anywhere else in the calendar. We don't do anywhere else in our country. So we're quite excited to be able to try and run it. It does require some logistics, and it does require clubs to, get 2 boys and 2 girls together. But I think a lot of clubs are able to do that. We will probably be looking at unofficial teams for those clubs who can't do that. So there will be opportunities to race. But of course, we're encouraging people to represent their clubs and race with their teammates. And if that means pulling somebody back into the race scene to race for your club, that's what you need to do. So Ganalapit Reading Week. You'll also notice scattered throughout here, there are some gray ones, which are the district race. Those are kind of proposed weekends. LSSD has kind of set their race calendar into these windows, but I think the other districts are still working through dates and locations and things like that. So wait and see for some of those other ones. Then there's OFSA here, the 23 to 25 at Lakefield High School. OUA is the 25 to 27 throughout reading with the end of reading week. And then U23, World Junior U23s are currently scheduled for the 28th onward. Is that another week after that? But they are likely moving the location from Poland. There is some discussion about that event going to Norway instead of Poland. The Polish host pulled out of hosting as well. So that date may still move somewhat, depending on what happens for those people interested out there. Ontario Winter Games for U16 and Para will fall into this March 3 through 6 weekend, and Youth Championships will fall the following weekend on the 12th, 13th of March, and that's in Timmins if it's not indicated here. So and then followed by Nationals, which is the last big block of the season. So these will be up on the website if they're not already, Liz. You can shake your head or give me I don't think we've posted these yet. They are in the bid package, basically. They have been up there. We've kind of known this for a while, but we haven't had the time or haven't made an effort to put this in concrete form on the website, but we will do that ASAP to make sure that this is kind of public info for everybody to look through. So yeah, I'm happy to have any questions about this at the end of the call, or if anyone has any race specific questions. Okay. So then, yeah. Okay. I see some questions. I can answer those at the end of the, or I can comment on those at the end of the call. Yeah, perfect. So the other thing that's probably quite interesting for quite a few people on this call is the programming for next year. I won't screen share the actual document, but I'll kind of walk through some of the kind of changes and things that you might want to know as part of the programming for next year. So we're going to bring back most of the document that we had the previous year. So that includes the district team competition, that includes the leader bib and the team categories, the club awards. Those aren't specific to any individual athletes. Well, I guess the district team is, but those will all be back when we have an Ontario Cup series to follow. I think probably some of the stuff, more specific stuff, which is good to know, is some of the, we are making a small change to the, we are going to maintain the Ontario Development Team program. So this year we had a program where athletes were basically asked to submit their YTP, record their training for a 3 to 4 month period, and basically show that they've completed or are on track to they're following and dedicated training and kind of reaching a minimum threshold of a training volume, etc. So we'll be maintaining that program next year. There's no specific camps or anything like that that are necessarily involved with that team. There are some clothing and some other benefits that will be included, including like group information, nutrition, mental performance sessions, but there's no specific camps tied to that team for next year. So then the program that didn't really exist just this year was the Ontario Junior Ski Team program. And if you're not familiar with that, that tends to be our kind of grade 11, 12 program at the end of high school. And occasionally we'll include some younger grade 10 athletes like that are in grade 10, 11, 12 at this very point right now. So the way we pick that team, which I think is quite good, although a little bit convoluted, I think sometimes a bit tricky to follow, is we'll look at the CPL list ranking of all the athletes, and we look at the top 10 athletes in average CPL, and we look at the top 10 athletes in terms of best CPL. And so there's a sprint CPL and a distance CPL. And so we'll rank them basically what the highest numbers are for each of those things. And then we'll take if there's any athletes that appear on one list but not the other, both athletes will be taken, if there's, how should I say this? If there's any athletes that appear just on one list, that's fine. They're on the team. So usually we end up with somewhere to say like 11, 12, 13 athletes instead of just the 10, because usually there's one or two athletes that their average is a bit lower or their best is a bit higher. It can fluctuate a little bit. And generally what we've done and will be again next year is that for the 05, 06 athletes, there will be the three guaranteed for each of those years of birth for boys and girls. And then for the additional athletes, the next 4 to make up the 10, that'll be open to all of the age categories. So that'll be 05, 06, 07. And I think I'm doing that right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And there's one other additional component of this that was added. It was added last year, but of course we weren't able to do it because no one had CPL. But if an athlete appears in the top 3 of their leader bib competition within their category, they will also be additionally nominated on top of any CPL. If they're not doing well in the CPL, but they've done well head to head and just attended an odd selection of races, then they would also still be added to the team as well. So I think probably that means we'll end up with a team somewhere in the neighborhood of 20, 25, and that's what we're planning. So and then in terms of planning for coaches and attending races, generally it's kind of 2/3. So I think for this year, that would mean attending at least 3 weekends of racing. So that'll be 6 races, 6 individual races will need to be completed. If all races go ahead, and so that would be 3 weekends of racing throughout the year on the O Cup of those races that we mentioned in the calendar. Yeah. So I'm doing a lot of talking here, and this will be a bit more clear when you have a document in front of you, but I think really positive this year was also including the submission of a YCP and recording the training. So I think this is something we're really looking for from the athletes to do, and not just make the team and then, check out and attend a couple training camps and then, not be so committed to skiing thereafter. So what we're looking to do, which we did this year, is that once the athletes are nominated, they have to submit their YTP, provide XCSO access to their training logs as we did this year with the development team and the performance team. And they have to record their training sufficiently during the summer training months and leading into the fall months. So if an athlete then, of course, does not do that, then they will no longer be eligible for camps and opportunities. So yeah. Okay. I will see if there's no specific questions to this. Okay. If there's any questions along the way, you can just throw it in the chat too, and I can answer them maybe on the fly as we go for some specific things too. So I don't see anything right now. So then the other component of this program is we're going back in terms of the naming. So we had the Ontario Performance Team this year, but we're going to go to our more traditional naming at the Ontario Ski Team. And so that program includes the OPSI support and tends to be for post-secondary athletes. We do sometimes extend some support beyond that, but it tends to be that kind of what next year will be 2004 and older. So that program is definitely a bit more extensive in terms of the expectations and the support that's provided. 2 things that got updated for this coming year will be, so in the past years, this will be included this year as well. We've done it based on a percentage of your IPB benchmark. If you're not familiar with IPB, it's a kind of progression of CPL, the Canadian points list points that over time, as you get older, you would move up on a kind of a certain progression. And we're looking at a certain percentage mark. So for 2004s, for example, it's a 93% of that benchmark to be part of this program. And as you get older, we would like to see that get closer to 100% and kind of be on that trajectory toward international performance, which is the intent of this program, to encourage or support our athletes who are on that trajectory and working toward representing Canada at a variety of different events. So yes, there will be that component as well, but what we'll also include going forward is the same thing, but in relation to the long-term athlete development benchmarks. So that includes running, strength, training, and a number of different things. So athletes who meet those benchmarks will also be eligible. There won't be a direct intake into the program, but they can fill out an IAPP. And people familiar with this year will know what that is, but it's basically an athlete profile that someone will fill out and submit to a selection committee, and we will make the decision whether to include that athlete as well. And this is coming from a little bit of a place of athletes who are maybe coming late into the sport and have a lot of potential, but maybe aren't necessarily technically proficient, or through various different things haven't kind of brought it together in skiing, but we're opening that door for some exceptional athletes to make that jump and provide them some support to make that jump. So, and I think we've had some athletes in this boat in the past, and this is kind of we've done it possibly a little bit ad hoc in the past in terms of this style of thing, but this was making this official and an official kind of pathway into the program. So one other thing that I want to add here is that we've identified probably for quite a few years now that we have a lack of female athletes coming into the post-secondary program, so into that high performance program. And we discussed at some length at the high performance committee about how to address some of those gaps that we've had in the program. because we tend to have maybe like, let's say if there's 10 athletes in the program, we have 7 boys and three girls. And that, yeah, I think we're wanting to close that gap a little bit and support some more female athletes. And, I think we lose quite a few in that high school to university post-secondary jump. So what we've kind of come up with, at least, is we'll try and see what we can do, is to create what we've called the Ontario Ski Team Female Athlete Bridge Program, which basically means that athletes who don't quite meet those benchmarks, we will have a program which we kind of still need to kind of put some really concrete things into in terms of what that will mean and how that will work. But we will probably provide some opportunities for athletes within a certain percentage mark of those benchmarks that we've outlined for the Ontario Ski Team. The exact percentage, I think we still need just to totally land on, but it'll apply to both the CPL and to the LTAD benchmark. So we will be looking at athletes kind of maybe secondary to those numbers, and looking at including them and providing them not maybe the whole suite of programming, but targeted opportunities to bring them up to the level that we'd like to see. And we've done some of this in the past, again, a bit more ad hoc. With, I think we've seen some success. So I think making this more official and concrete will, yeah, I think maybe also make it more known, and something people can aim for and kind of shoot for, rather than it being a bit maybe under the radar. So we want to make that official. Yeah. And so then, as always with any of these things, and this is probably where, taking some of this unofficial stuff, and we've had this kind of clause in here quite a bit, but again, if anybody is out there and they have an athlete who, hasn't had a racing license or whatever else, and they're really kind of blowing the doors off something at your club, please reach out to us at XCSO. We always want to know about those people who are, quite exceptional. We will try and make opportunities for those type of athletes. I think, if there's the best example I can think of is Graham Ritchie, who didn't have a racing license till grade 12, and with a nudge from club coach, we brought him into a camp, and nobody knew that he would go as far as he had, but I think that's a kind of best example. And I think Liesel Compton and Levi Nadler Smith are also 2 other examples of basically coaches in the community highlighting talent to us, and us trying to make opportunities for people, even though maybe they weren't on our immediate radar with our current systems. That doesn't mean they get jackets or all the whole deal, but we can sometimes provide opportunities, targeted opportunities to athletes who are highlighted to us. So, okay, I'm talking a lot. There's one more thing for me to go over, which is the waxing protocol. And I think I've sent this out on the WhatsApp as well, but so last year, if you didn't catch it, we did have a no fluoro waxing protocol in place, which was, I think, extra restrictive, and there were a couple reasons for that. But generally, what we're going to do on the O-Cup series, and we've agreed to this with Quebec. Quebec is on the same page, so that will be the same waxing protocol in Ontario and Quebec. It will be NF, liquids, buffers, and a specific list of travel waxes. So those waxes will be allowed. So there will be no powders, no no advanced paraffins, no basically anything that probably requires heat will be on that list. That is mainly to limit the amount of wax testing that will happen in probably a fairly uncertain wax testing environment, given that everything will be fairly new to most people. The products are all new. We want to reduce the amount of time and possible disparity between teams, given we don't know exactly what products and what combination will be the best. So we'd like to limit the effect of waxing on our O-Cup series and try and have the best athletes come out on top, rather than the best wax team in Ontario have their athletes qualify for teams, etc. So there will be no restrictions on grip wax. So all of the old grip wax that people have stocked away for the last 20 years will still be allowed. But there will be a restriction on those glide waxes limited to liquids, buffers, and like basically the most basic paraffin from each company. And this is, it is all an honor system. So if you have some old paraffins in the bag that, they've all been called different things over the last 20 years, that it's totally fine to use those as well. So whether it's, but it has to be NF. So that's the general gist of what we've been doing. And if there's any questions, feel free to text myself, or I think Camille Chesky will be the main contact for Quebec as well with regard to the list of allowable waxes. And we will be updating that list shortly, but I think it's fairly simple. So you should have a fairly good idea if it's allowed. So it's pretty easy. If you're not quite sure, just give me a shout or send me a message, but it should be fairly straightforward. The old protocol is still up on the website. If you search for it, you can take a look there. There's a link to the current list, but that will be updated as companies are coming out with a lot of new waxes as this kind of NF protocol comes into place. The one other thing to say is that, the FIS categories will be HF, so it'll be no restrictions, like do what you want, whatever you want. And nationals will also be all HF as well, all categories. So U16, U18, and open will be full fluoro, probably one more time. So we'll see, which is good. I mean, I'm happy, going into Whistler, which can be quite wild in terms of weather. I think having some things to fall back on might not be a terrible thing to have. So anyway, I'm happy to also answer questions at the end of the call if there's anything specific, but otherwise shoot me a message and give me a call.
Great, thanks, Victor. Just one, Victor, I have the update, sorry. The events are updated on the website. So if you just go to the event listing on the website, all of the races are updated there. Is Peter here? Okay, no Peter. There's an NOD meeting tonight, so he's attending that. So the last thing on the agenda is with respect to our return to sport protocols. As we know, we didn't have a competition season this year, and we are, I do believe we're going to have one this year. Everything seems to be moving in the right direction. So I just wanted to kind of update. There's currently a return to sport protocol with the return to training updated, and we will be working with, in particular, the 2 Ontario Cup hosts that will be in Thunder Bay and also in Walden. The 2 races that will be taking place at Nakartok in Quebec will have to follow, because it's located in Chelsea, Quebec. It will have to be, we'll be following Quebec guidelines. Right now, they held a roller ski race in Quebec. Any event that has over 50 people at it in Quebec, people have to be vaccinated. And so, there's not too much. Once we get to that point, we'll have to communicate with community as to what is expected. And then also, as we get closer to the races at the 2 events, the 2 Ontario Cups and also in Timmins, and the Ontario Winter Games. So all of those will be updated based on the public health guidelines at that time. If we continue to move forward in the direction that we're doing in Ontario, I think it all looks good. And just we will continue. We've been following a process where our return to sport protocols have been approved by our board of directors, and we'll continue to follow public health guidelines. Nordic Canada is supporting any additional restrictions that the divisions put into place. We are One of the things that we are promoting, of course, is to get vaccinated. That's Nordic Canada kind of came up with coined a phrase. You know, having your shot is our best shot at having a season. So by following public health guidelines, we will hopefully be able to continue to move forward. And once things get a little closer to the competition season, we will be updating our return to competition, and also the return to skill development. And for facilities, I think most of those, like the skill development, will probably remain fairly similar to last year. And facilities, that's going to be a bit of a different thing. And I think that each facility will have to manage that based on their public health unit. So I'm not anticipating too much in that area. But yeah, so we will continue to move forward. Any questions? No questions. All right, great. Thank you for coming out and joining us tonight. And we'll probably have another update mid to late November once we have a few more things in place and we have a better picture of what the next month or two will look like. And yeah, thanks and have a great evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Thanks for the update. Take care.
Oh, it's just Georgia Nordic now.
Yay! Yay for Georgia Nordic. And Lappy.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to go pack. I leave at 7:55 in the morning.
Yay!
Okay.
Stay safe.
Yeah. All right. Night.
See you Friday. Bye.
Bye.